ahead. And we're going to start off today with just going around and sharing our names and our pronouns, which organization or tribe you are from, and then why you volunteered to review applications. And I can just call on folks as I go down the screen. So my name's Ruth. I'm with Olympic Community of Health. I'm the community program coordinator, or one of the two community program coordinators. My pronouns are she and her, and it's my job. So that's why I'm reviewing applications and putting on this presentation. We'll pop down to Miranda.
Hi, everyone. Miranda Berger, she, her, OCH. And I'm really excited to see what kind of innovative projects roll in.
All right, Celeste.
Hey everyone, Celeste, she, her, OCH, and very similar to Miranda. I think it's really fun to review applications and learn about different project ideas that partners have and to see the types of work that we'll get to support for the next couple of years.
Thank you. And I think I saw Yvonne on here.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Yvonne. I have she, her pronouns, and I'm with OCH as well. I'm super excited to see what organizations collaborated on this funding opportunity and see what comes out of it.
All right, thank you. And Beth.
Good morning, Beth Johnson. I'm the CEO of Coordinated Care. I use she, her pronouns, and I volunteered because I really do like to understand the innovation and be able to reward those efforts. So looking forward to understanding what's out there. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Heidi.
Good morning, Heidi Anderson, CEO of Forks Community Hospital, pronoun she, her, and I am actually just interested in the process and also what projects are coming forward.
Thank you, Heidi. Roy.
Good morning, Roy Walker, at-large board member, pronouns he, him, and I'm excited to see what new partnerships evolve.
Thank you. Apple.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Apple Martine. I use she, her pronouns, and I am hailing from Jefferson County Public Health and representative to the board from the public health sector. I'm new to this role. I think I've been a part of the board for about 3 months. And I wanted this opportunity to actually just work in a subcommittee to get to know you all better, the OCH staff, as well as other board members. And clearly, like everybody else has indicated, it's exciting to read applications and just to see what partnerships are being thought of and innovated around. And so I'm eager to help nudge that along as a reviewer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Stormy.
Good morning. I'm Stormy Howell. I am the treatment program manager at Clallam Counseling Services with the Lower Elwha Clallam tribe. And I use she, her pronouns. And I wanted to be on the committee. I'm still fairly new to the OCH board, and I wanted to be more involved and kind of see how the process went. And like everybody else here, I was interested to see the applications and what types of partnerships and programming is coming our way.
Fabulous. Thank you. Bergen.
Hi there, everyone. Bergen Stark, Director of Behavioral Health at Peninsula Community Health Services, she, her pronouns. I'm excited to see the creativity with people partnering together. I'm a big supporter of this region, excited about the work. Thanks.
Thanks so much. All right, Brian.
Brian Burwell, he, him. I'm at Suquamish Wellness and alternate board member, and I think I am the subcommittee chair.
Thank you, Brian. Lana.
Hi, my name is Lana. I'm the resource manager with the Port Angeles Food Bank. My pronouns are she and her. And I guess kind of like everyone else, I'm just excited to hear what kind of ideas are popping up in the region.
Thank you. And Carlos?
Good morning. My name is Carlos Osorio, Outreach and Navigation Department Manager at Known, he, they pronouns. And I'd want to volunteer because I want to learn more about the grant application process, reviewing. It's a new skill set for me that I'm trying to develop.
Thank you. Brent?
This is Brent Simkowski. I'm not sure why I volunteered. I think because we weren't going to apply for any of the funds, I thought I might be objective.
Thank you for your honesty. All right, Janelle.
Good morning, everybody. Janelle Ashley, she, her. I am the administrator at Reflections Counseling Services Group and the representative to the board for the SUD sector. The reason why I wanted to volunteer is to give back and to kind of learn a new process. This is something I haven't done before.
Great, thank you. And Stephanie.
Stephanie had to walk. They're doing like an earthquake drill at Kitsap County today. So she had to step away for a few minutes, but she said she'd let us know when she's back. But Stephanie Lewis is the administrator of the BHASO. And she's also a board member. And I think she's probably similar to Brent, that she can be an objective voice because they don't typically apply for funds from us. But I'm sure she has other more fun reasons why she wanted to participate.
Thank you, Celeste. Is there anyone else? I think I got everyone. All right. All right, so we're just going to start out with our land acknowledgement. Together we acknowledge with humility the Indigenous peoples whose presence permeates the waterways, shorelines, valleys, and mountains of the Olympic region. The land where we are is the territory of the Chimacum, Ho, Makad, Skalam, Suquamish, and Quileute tribes on whose sacred land we live, work, and play. All right, so to kick us off with the Stronger Together funding opportunity, I'm just going to do a little overview. So OCH is seeking to meaningfully engage organizations and tribes across the Olympic region to work towards the goal of improving individual and population health and advance equity by addressing determinants of health. There is up to $2 million available to support local projects working to improve individual and population health. Organizations and tribes in the Olympic region working to advance health through collaborative action are eligible to apply under this funding opportunity. If you look over on the right side, oh, sorry, can you go back? There we go. One of the requirements is teaming up with a neighboring organization or tribe. So there has to be at least 2 partners working together to complete the application, outlining the project you and your team will implement. And projects must address at least one of the eligible project goals, which we're going to go over in the next slide. All right, so these are the different project goal areas. Address and reduce stigma of those community members with substance use disorder through community-wide education, youth engagement, and through policy and systems change. Increase the availability of long-term and safe transitional and respite housing options for people throughout their recovery journey. Embedded substance use disorder, SUD services and mobile units and jail programs, including connecting people to respite and transitional housing. Partner with hospitals to ensure access to appropriate respite, supportive transitional or long-term housing for those transitioning out of care. Identify and implement creative workforce approaches to address the health-serving workforce crisis. partner with schools and colleges to create pathways to address local workforce shortages. Okay, so there are going to be 4 important documents for reviewers to make sure that they have read and gone through and that you're comfortable with accessing those. So I'm going to walk through each of them briefly right now, and then they're embedded in this PowerPoint that you'll get in an email after this presentation. So first, we're going to go through the overview and instructions. So this document, I guess this is what the front looks like for you to refer back to. It starts out with an introduction and a background into kind of how we got here with this funding opportunity, and the action plan that got us here. So if you're not familiar with that, I would go through this document and read through kind of how we got here. And there's a little timeline on page 2. The goal and scope, which we just went through the project goals. So each application has to be aligned with at least one of those. The scope of the project in itself has to do direct collaboration with at least one other organization, so at least 2 orgs together. This application is open for organizations, tribes, and government entities to apply. Brief overview of the role of OCH, and then a little bit more of a deep dive into the funding and the amount of funds that can be requested. There is no cap on that, no explicit cap. Applicants should request a reasonable funding amount. Proposals that are over 250,000 will be considered. However, these may only be partially funded depending on other applications we receive. There is a timeline in here, which we'll go through a little bit more in a minute. And then the last part is the scoring and review criteria. So this will be what you all will be using to score the applications, which we will go through that as well. And then at the end here, there's a little bit more on budget and some contracting information.
And Bruce, if I could just jump in
real
quick. So if you want to go back up just a little bit, I just want to point out a few things that as you're reviewing, and this is something that's been coming up during the frequently asked questions. So the very first budget section is that a budget is not required as part of the application. I know that's throwing people off clearly, but I just wanted to make sure that you all saw that so you're not going to be getting a full budget from applicants under this process. There are a couple of questions when we review the actual application. So partners, applicants will be asked to just tell us the total dollar amount that they're requesting. And then they'll also be asked to describe any other sources of funding that they have or might be seeking that could also support the work. So as you're sort of thinking this through, just keep that in mind. They are asked to provide a list of activities and milestones that would probably help us to understand a little bit about how they would spend the money. But these are the source of funding for this, and this did come up in the FAQ. There's the source of funding for this is board designated funds. So these are funds that we didn't spend under the original Medicaid transformation project, and since that project has concluded, those funds become completely under the discretion of the board of directors. So we have the opportunity to be really flexible with these funds. So there isn't like a restriction on what people can use them for. They don't have to provide us with invoices. But I just wanted to call that out because I know it's a little bit unique for those of you who spend your time chasing grants. I just wanted to make sure that that's called out because I know it's really different from what we're all used to.
Thank you, Celeste. Okay, so that is your overview and instructions document. We are going to pop over to project examples. So this document outlines some examples for partners to get an idea of the collaborations we're looking for. I won't read through it all, but I'll just go through the first one, for instance, address. So an example could be address and reduce stigma of those community members with substance use disorder through community-wide education, youth engagement, and through policy and systems change. So that is one of the project goals. And an example could be partnering with a SUD treatment agency to organize community education to reduce stigma, collaborate with youth serving organizations, schools, or school districts to engage youth in addressing stigma surrounding substance use, or collaborate to develop resources and training to support healthcare providers in reducing stigma of patients in treatment or recovery for substance use disorder. So we went through each of the goal areas and have some examples for each of them. So if you would like to review that, it might be helpful of getting an idea of where folks may have got their ideas.
Ruth, can I jump in real quick? I'll just highlight that the intention of this document was to help spark some inspiration by providing examples to partners. It was not meant to be prescriptive. So you'll definitely see applications for projects that are not included on this list, which is great.
Thank you, Miranda. Okay, and then the next document is the application itself. So we'll quickly just skim through this. And this is where you'll see the name of the project, and then they'll check which goal their project will be under. And then the free text part outlining who's partnering on the project, and then this nice graph kind of gives you an overview of who's making up the project team and the different partners. And then the leadership of the project. And then some questions about project alignment, how partners will be involved.
Hey, Ruth, Apple has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Apple.
Hey, thanks. And let me lower my hand. I am curious, what are the logistics if, say, you're reviewing an application and the applicant has failed or mistakenly omitted something in terms of not full or complete information? Do you have a mechanism where communication with the applicant is kind of activated to get maybe something that was missed on the application filled in, or is that part of the scoring such that it takes the scoring down?
Yeah, it's a good question, Apple. So when applications come in, the OCH staff team is doing a technical review of the applications. So we will go through, and if they are missing something, we will let them know and give them a little bit more time to get any missing information back to us. So by the time the application comes to you all, if there's still something missing, that means that that's how they wanted it to be. But we will do a review to make sure that all the pieces and parts are there. And it's really just this application document that is what they need to submit. So it should be a pretty easy review. But yes, we will follow up with people if it looks like maybe something didn't get transposed correctly or something like that. And I also wanted to point out that at the top of this document, we clarified that they are welcome to submit this as in another format. I know these fillable PDFs sometimes feel really nice for people and sometimes they're really annoying to people. So they can also submit it as a PowerPoint or as a Word document, and we've asked that they keep everything in the same order. So just keep that in mind too, that you might see a little bit of a slightly different format for this when it reaches your inbox.
Great.
Does that answer your question, Apple?
Totally. I appreciate the detail.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Celeste, for answering that. And then section number 3 goes into the budget, which Celeste just kind of talked about, and how many people are aimed to be reached through the project. For project description, end result, the current status if it is a current project, and some milestones that we ask. And then let's get down to section 5. So what populations of emphasis will be reached for the project, so they can go through and mark the populations. How will members of these communities be engaged, the geographical area, how the project will advance equity. And then number 6, just the last part, is leadership commitment and signatures.
Ruth, if you scroll up, there's a question that I want to call out here. Keep going up. I think it's right above this section. So question 20, when the RFP committee, and I think I failed to mention at the beginning that the RFP committee for this project they're all on this call. So as Brian Burwell mentioned, he's the chair of the group. Bergen's on the group, Stormy's on the group, and Bobby Beeman is also on the group, but I know she's out of town today. But one of the things that we wanted to honor with this process is that there might be like an article or a video or a website, like there might be just something else that people want to provide to help give some additional context or information about the project. So question 20 gives applicants the option to provide us with a link or supplemental documents or something along those lines, and we've asked them to keep those to just an additional 5 to 10 minutes of review. So it could be that people will leave that question blank, or that they might provide some links, and that's okay. We, sometimes it's just helpful to have, if like somebody has like a 2-minute video or something that they can share to help give some more information. So I wanted to call that question out specifically. And definitely you should, peruse the application document before you start getting applications in your inbox too. But just to call that out.
Yeah, that was a good one to make note of. Okay, so there is the application. And then we're just the last one we're gonna go over is our FAQ document. So this one has become a little bit lengthy. Lots of good questions in here. And I think as you read through it, you'll be able to get some clarity on things you may be wondering. We did include partners who are seeking to collaborate. So that was really nice to have, so people could find each other to work together. And then it's kind of broken up with the type of questions. So we highly encourage you to go through this before you start reviewing and see if you had some questions that I can answer. Celeste or Miranda, do you have any call outs for the FAQ document?
I just add that this is comprehensive of every question we've received in an effort to be fair to everybody, having the same level of information and detail. And as Ruth mentioned, we tried to organize it because it did get lengthy. So there's an eligibility section, a funding section, questions we've gotten about how to actually fill out the application. So hopefully it's organized in a way where you could easily find a question that you might have. But I do think it's a really nice resource to prepare you for looking through some of the responses.
Great, thank you. Okay. So all of those documents are embedded in the PowerPoint you'll receive, and then they're also available on the website, our funding website page. Okay, so all right, so the timeline for our reviewers, Applications are due on May 1st, and they're being directly submitted to OCH. Between May 1st and May 2nd, OCH will work on assigning applications to reviewers. And those application review score sheets will be due to OCH by May 18th. So we ask you get those back to us on the 18th. May 26th, the RFP committee will meet. We'll bring together all the scores for them. And then June 12th, the board of directors will make final funding decisions. So in a little bit more in depth with the process, each application will be reviewed. Oh,
I think this is me, Ruth. I think this is my section.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay. So for the next few slides here, we'll walk through the review process, talk a little bit about conflict of interest, bias, sort of how to go about your review. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have if you've got those documents open that Ruth was just going over. And of course, you know how to find us if you have questions when, as you've got applications open and you're going through things. So each application, we've already got 2 that came in, one yesterday, one today. So people are applying. So that's a good start. So each application is going to be reviewed by 3 people. So one OCH staff member is going to review, and that's the staff who are on today's call are going to be dividing up applications. One regional partner. So if you're not a staff member and you're not part of the RFP committee, then that's you are under this category of a regional partner, and then one member of the RFP committee. And I already mentioned who those folks are. So they're also going to help review applications. And you'll conduct your review independently, and we also ask that you keep your review confidential, that you not sort of share back with others who are or aren't a part of the process. We will, as Ruth mentioned, on May 3rd, we will email you your applications for review and the score sheet, which I'll go over here in a minute. And then we'll ask you to complete your review of each application and then email the scores back to the OCH inbox. And then the RFP committee is meeting, as Ruth mentioned on the previous slide, on May 26th. And so that's the group where, and the meeting where we'll kind of take stock of everything in total. So we'll review all of the scores, and that group is going to make a set of recommendations that will go to the board of directors for their June meeting.
So what time are we meeting on the 26th? What time?
It's the RFP committee, so that's Brian, Bergen, Stormy, and Bobby.
Oh, okay.
That's who makes up the RFP committee group. Yeah. So once you email us back your scores on May 18th, you can cross this off your list, and if you're a board member, you'll see things again at the June meeting. So at that May 26th meeting of the RFP committee, they will take into account not only the scores and the feedback from all of the reviewers, but the funding recommendations will include other filters, such as, we want to make sure we fund projects throughout the region through a variety of different partner types and partner sizes. So we want to make sure, so ultimately, there will be a recommendation to the board that might align with the scores from top to bottom, or it might wind up looking a little bit different. And that's outlined in the overview and instructions document. And I just wanted to be really transparent and clear with you that, the actual funding recommendations might look a little bit different than top to bottom for scores. Next slide, Miranda. So to talk a little bit about conflict of interest, so as many of you know, OCH has a conflict of interest policy that sort of guides the whole, the organization's conflict of interest. And for those of you who are board members or committee members, you sign that annually. So for this process, we'll ask you to consider conflict of interest in a little bit of a different way. So as part, when the RFP committee sort of established some of the ins and outs of this process, these are some other things that came up when we looked at conflict of interest. So if you are a partner who is going to be included on an application, or if you're even like distally mentioned as part of the application, we won't send you those applications for review. And if you do accidentally get one of those, you can always let us know that it needs to be reassigned. And we're not going, so if your organization or tribe is submitting an application, we are not going to send you applications of the same project type. So for example, if you're proposing a project around SUD stigma work, we will send you applications that are in other project types. So we won't ask you to score other SUD stigma applications. And the same thing, you will be reviewing applications from outside of your home county. And I know for a couple of you, like Beth and Stephanie and others, we're going to set that aside for you since you serve either the whole state or the whole region. But in general, if you work for Jefferson County, we'll ask you to review applications for Kitsap or Clallam just to try to reduce any potential conflict of interest. And then there's also this open-ended opportunity. So like if you're sitting on the board of directors for an organization and need that, or if you have a family member or somebody who works for a partner organization or tribe, if you could let us know that, you can either send us an email, or you can send something to one of us or all of us in the chat. Like if you know that there's an organization who's submitting an application that you probably shouldn't review as a best practice, you can let us know that. And then again, when we email you the applications next week, you can always say, oh no, this is probably one I shouldn't review. And you don't have to go into a lot of detail about the conflict. But I think those are the examples, like, or if you donate money to an organization, I mean, I think just kind of use good judgment when it comes to conflict of interest. Any questions on that before we move on? So I wanted to, the score sheet is something that was in the overview and instructions document, and we'll go through that. So the scoring really aligns with all of the documents that Ruth just went over. And as I mentioned, we're going to ask that you keep this confidential. So just do your review independently, email it back to OCH, and try not to share it too widely. But this is the score sheet that you're going to receive, and the rubric is word for word what is in the application. Oops, scroll back up there real quick, Miranda. So I think this first page here outlines everything that we've been talking about, and there's some information about bias that we'll talk about in the slide deck again too. So page 2 is really the meat of this process. So for each application that you receive, you'll fill this document out, and you can do it electronically, or you can print it and do it handwritten, and either scan it and send it back to us, or let us know, and we can connect with you to get it picked up. But write down your name, the project name of the application, so we can keep everything straight, and then the dollar amount that's being requested for that project. And then you can see the scoring rubric here, and this aligns pretty well, I think, with the application template that you saw. So for the first section is about partnership, and there's 10 points available there. So the application is submitted by at least 2 Olympic region partners. The roles and responsibilities among the partners are clearly outlined. There's an interest in collaboration and building relationships and connections. And the application describes how this opportunity aligns with the partners' priorities. The second section is also 10 points, the budget, the scope, and the scale. So as you'll recall from the application template, there's a question of how much money are you asking for, and whether or not there's other funding sources that the partner has mentioned, and that's 10 points there. So with the funding request, there's also a question in the application about how many people they plan to reach through the project. And that's how you can sort of rate this question of whether or not the request is commensurate with the number of involved partners, the scope and number of projects, and the estimated number of people to be reached. The third section is the description of the selected project. So they clearly outline which project is being proposed, that they've provided a sufficient amount of information, including a clear desired result, which is one of the questions in the application, a summary of the current status of the project and the key activities that they'll take to implement the project, how they plan to measure success, and any other relevant details. And again, those are all prompts within the application, so hopefully that's not going to be hard to kind of parse out when you're doing your review. And then 10 points for equity. So as Ruth showed in that section 5 of the application, there's a few questions about equity. So you'll rate how they plan to advance equity, that they have a sort of an understanding for the population who is going to be reached and the barriers that those groups may face to being healthy, and that they outline the geographic area where the project will happen and how that contributes to equity. And then the last 10-point section here is implementation. So we've got some questions in the application about the strengths that the partners bring to the proposed project, and then also a question about any challenges that they anticipate and how those might be mitigated. And then finally, there's 5 points available. There's a question in the application that asks for how they plan to continue the project beyond this funding cycle. So a total of 55 points. So you'll enter your score in those yellow boxes. It's okay if you need to do half points, but let's not go any lower than half points. But I know sometimes a half point can feel really satisfying when you're doing this kind of review. And then there's a section at the bottom for you to add any comments that you have. And this is really the crux of why we wanted to involve partners as part of the review, because there's such a wealth of knowledge and information from all of you. And you might have a like, oh, you should look at this project somewhere else, or you might consider this other source, or look at this website. So you can make your comments sort of whatever sort of input you might want to offer, anything that might help us to make some final decisions, and then also anything that might help us in the contracting phase. Like, this is a great project, I might fund it partially, or we might, or boy, it's interesting they didn't include this other partner in the project. Just those kinds of things that can just make the work even better in the end. Any questions about the score sheet, Apple?
Thank you. This is well thought out. I really appreciate tracking through it with you all. My question, let's see, is twofold. I'm curious in the rubric with each of the bullet points within each category, and then you have a summation of points that can be attributable. Is there any weighting per point, or is it just a scale of 1 to 10 and where that falls?
No, it's just a scale of, it's a scale of 1 to 10. And in the next slides, we'll talk about, some of the ways to avoid bias. And one of those is for you to be consistent. So as long as you're consistent in your review, that like whatever you give a 5 for in one application, if somebody had a similar summary, that you would also give them a 5. So I think that's the way to sort of keep it consistent. And some of us are going to be hard graders and some of us are going to be easy graders. That's just the nature of this kind of process. So as long as you're individually consistent, I think it'll work out in the end. But no, the number of bullets or the description of the bullets doesn't really, because it's just kind of based on how many questions there were in the application.
Okay.
Does that help?
It does help. And sort of the premise for asking that question or that clarification needed was, I recall in the board meeting where we discussed that this was coming, that there was some sort of discussion and maybe some stress around the partnership element and how that might get construed or actionable within the applicants. And so I'm maybe you'll get to it in terms of the bias section that you're going to get to next, but my and it's an assumption, so it could be a moot point because I haven't read any applications yet. But where that particular item might be a struggle for certain people, I would want to consistently grade that. So that's why I was asking if they at all have weightedness within them. And the other question I have is very tactical. If you said it, I apologize, but would we email back either the document or the scan of the document to a specific email address once we're done before the 18th?
Yeah, it goes to ochh@olympic.ch.org,
Okay,
and we'll put that in the. Yeah, as Ruth mentioned, after today's call, we'll send you this PowerPoint, and then next week when we send you applications, we'll be really clear in those emails what to do when you're finished.
Okay, great. So, yeah. Thank you.
And if you wind up emailing it to me or to Miranda or to Ruth individually, we'll make sure it gets where it needs to go. So don't knock yourself out over that. We're such a small group; things don't seem to get too long. Any other questions on the score sheet before we keep going here? Okay.
My
so
question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So the technical answer around partnerships, at least, does one of the partners have to be a current member of OCH? No?
No.
So they could both be new partners?
No, so actually, if you go to the, whoever is screen sharing, if you could pull up the overview and instructions document again, please. And scroll up to where we talk about the partnership piece. So I think scroll down. Keep going down. Where did we put that? Maybe it was higher up. But yeah, there is an FAQ about that as well, Roy. But this is totally open to any organization, tribe, or government in the region. So it could be that an application will be all partners that we haven't contracted or worked with in the past, or partners that we have worked with in the past. But the requirement is just that there's at least 2 partners working together on an individual application. And there have been some questions that came up in the FAQ process that I think get more to what that's going to look like in contracting. And so I think we can set those kinds of things aside, like how the money is going to be divided between the participating partners. I think that piece we decided to leave out of this process because I think we want to be really flexible in the contracting process with that.
Yeah, I saw that. So, and then the other element is presence within the region. And so how we see that. And again, I know you guys are going to be doing technical review before we get them. So we won't be reviewing anything that doesn't meet the intended expectation there.
Right. So they will talk about the geographic area that they serve. Yeah, and they will indicate the difference. So in the application, there's a prompt for which partner organizations and tribes are involved in the application. And then the roles and responsibilities, I think, that they'll have to outline, I think will help clarify some of that as well. Does that answer your question, Roy?
Yes, it did. Thanks.
Okay. So to switch a little bit to just thinking about your own review. So for those of you who have reviewed applications in the past, you've likely, had a little bit of training or information presented about, how to manage your bias, since we do all have bias. So a few things to keep in mind, and you might, I know there's some really experienced folks on the call who might have other examples or things to share here, but some things to keep in mind where bias might sort of try to come in through this. The one we hear a lot about is scoring based on the applicant's writing or grammar skills. I know it can be hard to review applications that have a lot of grammatical errors or misspellings. And if you can do your best to set those aside and not rate them on how well they write, that's always really helpful. And then because it is a small rural region and we know each other pretty well, we ask that you keep your scoring based on what's provided in the application. So you might have knowledge of an applicant's organization or tribe that falls outside of the application, and we ask that you try to set that aside and not score based on other knowledge or things that aren't part of the application. As I mentioned earlier, we ask that you stay consistent with your scoring of your applications. And again, if you're a hard grader, then be a hard grader all the way through. If you're an easy grader, be an easy grader all the way through. And don't compare the applications to one another, because remember, you're only reviewing a few of the applications that come in, and it's the RFP committee's role to kind of step back with that big picture to look at the totality of the applications and scores. So your role is not to compare and contrast at this point. That step will happen later at the end of May after we get your scores back. So just score each application individually and be consistent in your review. And then similar to sort of scoring based on other knowledge of the application, try to be mindful of what's known as confirmation bias. So if you know of an organization that they've got a really great reputation for doing fantastic work in the past, sometimes there can be a tendency to assume that the application you're about to read is going to be just as stellar. And that can, by doing that, you're coming in with a little bit of bias. And the same way on the flip side, that, if there's an organization or a tribe who submitted an application that maybe has struggled in the past or something like that, try not to read the application through that lens, just read the application based on the content of the application. Any other examples of bias or any questions, comments? Okay, so this is just the flip side. This is what we'd like you to do when you're reviewing the application, to try to limit your bias. So score based on the content, not the writing or grammar, based solely on the application and any supplemental materials that they provide. Be consistent and try not to compare applications to each other. Okay. Ruth, I think this is you.
Sorry, I was trying to get unmuted. Okay, so that is our reviewer training. We just want to thank all of you for your time and commitment to doing this. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. And some reminders that applications will be sent to you on May 3rd, and then those score sheets will be due on May 18th. We will send out this PowerPoint via email along with the recording. And does anyone have questions, last thoughts?
Just like to applaud you all in making the process so transparent and well crafted, and not exactly new to reviewing applications, but I haven't done it much. So I really appreciate the strategy you've used in helping teach us how to do this. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. It looks very comprehensive.
Yeah, lead by example.
Thanks for acknowledging that, Apple and Beth. We appreciate it. We're doing our best, but I'm sure we've missed something. So we'll see what happens once the applications start rolling in. And don't hesitate to reach out to us. Once you get your applications, and if questions come up and you're like, wait, what were we supposed to do? So we'll be around to help support you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.